Okay, so for this workshop, we're going to be reviewing prokaryotic versus eukaryotic cells. So I have some images at the bottom that you can look at. Um, you can probably tell from the difference just looking at the pictures that the one on the left is more simple than the one on the right. And so that would be the prokaryotic on the left, eukaryotic on the right. We'll look at some other images as we go through this. So I'll talk about prokaryotic first. So they are the much more simple of the two. So these are typically bacteria cells or archaea cells, which are usually things that are found like on the bottom of the ocean in really extreme conditions, volcanoes, things like that. So they are very simple. Like I said, they don't have a nucleus and they don't have any membrane bound organelles. So none of their organelles have any kind of membrane around them. So as you can see on the picture on the right here, their um, their DNA is just kind of like squiggly here right in the center, and it doesn't have any kind of membrane around it. It still does have cytoplasm. It has a cell membrane, and they do have ribosomes because every cell needs protein to be able to survive. And so proteins are definitely one of the most important things. And then they have something called a plasmid right here. So a plasmid is something interesting. It's actually a small bit of DNA that can be used and reproduced independently. So researchers use plasmids a lot to be able to take DNA from one specific gene and be able to replicate it lots of different times, and then to be able to insert that piece of DNA into something else, into another organism's genome. And so they can do this to try to alter sequences that are incorrect. They do this to look at a specific protein that they're studying. I did this when I was trying to create a specific vaccine for leptospirosis. Something else that is unique about prokaryotic cells is usually they are single-celled um, organisms. They're very tiny. Um, they do usually have pili and flagella, so you can see here the pili are kind of just like the hairy portions here, and the flagella are the longer ones that actually help it to move from one place to another. So just the thing to remember with this is it's very simple and it doesn't have membrane bound organelles. It also has a nucleoid, and so that's kind of the general area that the DNA is at, but it's not actually like a membrane that surrounds it. Something else to think about is that even though it does have a cell wall and a cell membrane, the cell wall is made out of peptidoglycan, and so that's a unique substance in prokaryotic cells. So now if we go to eukaryotic cell, those are those typical animal cells that you've learned about before. So they have membrane-bound organelles, they have a cell membrane, they have a nucleus that holds DNA in the form of chromosomes. So remember, chromosomes are tightly compact DNA, and it makes it so that all of our DNA can fit into a very small space. If it wasn't, it would spread out and it could wrap around the Earth like several times. Um, eukaryotic organisms are usually multicellular. They can sometimes be single-celled, but it's pretty rare. So it's going to be like our animals, plants, fungi, and protists. And like I said, it is surrounded by a plasma membrane or a cell membrane, and they have mitochondria, which is what is used to create energy for the cell. With prokaryotic organisms, they have to be able to get nutrition and energy from their environment, whereas eukaryotic cells are able to make it from them, like within themselves. And then eukaryotic cells are able to carry information within their genome to create proteins. That's very important because all of our DNA has genes, and then our genes code for proteins, and then those proteins are able to produce everything about those organisms. So we'll learn more about that in the spring. But obviously, these eukaryotic cells are much more complex than the simple prokaryotic cells. So that's a very important kind of division to be able to make between the two of these things.